Hi, my fellow knife enthusiasts. Today I'm going to show you a beautiful Nigara knife. I don't own this knife actually. This knife is from an Italian friend of mine. His name is Giovanni. Giovanni was so kind to offer me the opportunity to make a review video on it. Thank you, Giovanni, again. Molto grazie. Grazie mille. That being said, let's talk a little bit about Nigara Hamano. Nigara Hamano is located in Hirosaki on the northern side of Japan in Aomori Prefecture. It has this beautiful Hirosaki castle just standing there looking really cool in the Hirosaki Park amongst 2,500 cherry blossom trees. Steel manufacturing in the area has been carried out for a long time. On the blacksmiths in the area was the Nigara family, who were tasked with making swords for the Tsugaru clan about 350 years ago. Now Nigara Hamano is a family-run business led by 8th generation blacksmith Tsuyoshi Yoshizawa. All Nigara knives are made by hand in a traditional way by master blacksmiths. Nigara makes stunning, unique pieces, identifiable by the intricate tsuchime finish on the blades. During the early Edo period, the city of Hirosaka was a castle town. There were over 100 forging shops in the area. Nigara forging has a history of over 350 years as one of the few noble swordsmiths in Japan who have continued to preserve this art. The making of samurai swords has been abandoned as a business item since 1965. But the same forging techniques such as welding and hammering have been kept alive in the making of their knives. Nigara products were officially certified as Aomori Prefecture Traditional Crafts in December 2007. Let's go, the Nigara Rainbow Rainbow Damascus Kiritsuke Gyuto 240mm. Look at that. Comes with a nice little story and instructions. I love this handle. It's beautiful and dark with these shiny silver spacers. Pretty murdered out. Here we go with the blade. Oh, wow. Wow. Will you look at that? Just look at this. The contrast of this rainbow Damascus, it's so clearly visible, and I love the contrast, the really high contrast with the core steel edge and the shiny, polished, soft stainless cladding. It's so nice and dark. The grind is a nice convex grind, but it's a little bit thick behind the edge. It definitely has some junk in the trunk, in the back. It's a pretty robust blade geometry indeed. Definitely not a laser. What I really like is that you can see the core steel on the spine as well. So you can see the core steel and then the soft cladding on both sides. I really like that. You can see the dark carbon steel in between those shiny polished layers. It's just beautiful. It looks like racing stripes on a car. Be sure to dry the spine of your knife really well as well, Giovanni, because yeah, the core steel there is exposed. Also at the choil you can see all layers. Man, this is such a gorgeous blade. That contrast, I can't get over the beautiful contrast of the dark edge with the polished rainbow Damascus cladding. The taper of the spine is really nice and beautiful. It's not a perfect distal taper, but it definitely tapers down really nicely to the tip, and especially where the K-tip starts, it becomes really thin. So if you love doing precision cuts with a tip, then this definitely will please you. I think it's so cool that people are capable of doing this, you know, with their hands, making something so unique and so beautiful. The handle is a octagon, standard octagon shape. It's pretty thick and has some weight to it. So the balance point of the knife is pretty much right smack in at the choil. Personally, I like my knives to be a little bit front heavy, so the balance point more up on the blade and not so much in the middle or where the blade, the choil meets the handle. But yeah, I think being balanced in the middle is good for almost everyone. I can work with it, just my personal preference is a front heavy blade. This handle has this beautiful dark, murdered out vibe to it. If you look closely, you can see the grains of the wood, but from a distance it's almost like it's made of black stone or something. It's really nice. The profile of this blade is a little bit flat and less curvy than a average Gyuto, I think. It has a slight little curve on the belly, but so you can definitely rock with this knife. For me personally, this profile is probably quite perfect because I like the flat bottom, but yeah, the slight curve on the edge definitely gives a little bit more versatility to the blade. And yeah, with the K-tip in the hands of a master chef, with this knife you could probably do 95% of all the tasks in the kitchen. The fit and finish of this knife is, yeah, close to flawless. It is pretty flawless actually. It's totally flawless. Yeah, it's definitely perfect. There's nothing really that I can fault. This is some excellent work. Wow, look at that gold glow. Look at how the brass really sparkles from this angle. Just crazy beautiful. I'm pretty much lost for words, and I'm pretty sure my words don't do justice to what this blade is. And blue number 2 steel gets really sharp. Doesn't make a knife a good performer. Most of it, I think, in my honest opinion, depends on the blade geometry. And as I mentioned before, this knife has some weight to it because the handle is pretty heavy, but also the blade is pretty heavy, and it has this quite robust geometry, a bit chunky, and that's why it wedges a bit through, for example, sweet potato. This series was created because little hand-forged rainbow Damascus steel is made. So for Yoshizawa-san, it was a great challenge to make a series of this. The first knives in this series actually had a polished core, so it would be shiny all over the place. The new ones are etched to give a greater contrast to the Rainbow Damascus, which is clearly visible because yeah, the edge now has this really nice dark finish and color to it. And also they etched the knife so that the Rainbow Damascus pattern really pops. Something that I noticed is that there is no kanji on either side of the blade. No kanji whatsoever. I assume they did this on purpose to let this beautiful Rainbow Damascus pattern be shown optimally and not intervene with its gorgeous patterns. And I suspect that they may have put kanji on the tang. which I can't confirm right now because it wouldn't be visible with the tang inside of this handle, of course. Having a legendary 5th generation blacksmith, Japan's national treasure Mr. Kunitoshi Nigara, gives the family brand a high status. But the best way to understand why Nigara sets itself apart is from the eyes of the current 8th generation blacksmith, Mr. Tsuyoshi Yoshizawa. As he stands in a family business workshop with his younger brother and 2 young craftsmen, feeling inspired to create the most outstanding knives for the world. He's in fact given 2 things no other brands can give him. First, his father / boss, the current president of Nigara, the 7th generation owner, Mr. Toshiju Yoshizawa. A fan of arts, music and literature, Mr. Yoshizawa does not fit the typical profile of a knife maker. He believes a broad perspective opens new doors, and studying arts and music hones his sensitivity to the world around him. In 2008, he created Anmon pattern based on the impression of the Anmon waterfalls cascading from the foot of the World Heritage Shirakami Mountains adjacent to the city of Hirosaki. But in fact, the first inspiration for Anmon came from Andy Warhol's paintings of John Lennon. John's glasses look like waves. Having a father like Mr. Yoshizawa gives Tsuyoshi an enormous amount of inspiration and creative freedom. And he is too encouraged to have a broader perspective, one that's far beyond the walls of the bladesmithing workshop. The second thing, in Tsuyoshi's arsenal is the family business deep know-how in steelworks. Nigara family has long expanded since the days of swordsmithing into construction steelworks, steel beam technologies, as well as historical metal structure restorations. In a nutshell, Nigara is steel guru. When Tsuyoshi wanted to create a particular Damascus finish on his blade, he does not go to the steelmaker for a ready-made solution. He walks over to the family businesses, other divisions, where experts come up with in-house solutions. While lots of knife makers rely on steel companies to make them Damascus billets, Nigara makes its own with dozens of finishings involving technologies often used in steel frame production. So I asked Giovanni, I think once or twice, just to be sure if I could use the knife and test it out on some produce. And he gave me permission. Of course, I was extra super careful with this knife since it's not mine. So after I was really sure that Giovanni was okay with me using the knife, I tested it on some things that I needed to do, some preparations that I needed to do for a private chef gig. And I knew I needed to cut, for example, a pineapple, which on reactive steel or a reactive core like this can definitely cause a instant patina. I was, of course, really diligent in cleaning the knife a lot in between and during cutting. So the knife performed pretty good. I was not as impressed with it as my troll killer Gyuto, but that is definitely more a laser. And this knife again is a little bit chunky, has some weight to it. Therefore the knife is not that nimble, but definitely not too heavy. It's still easy to wield. Definitely slices through soft produce like butter. Onions or shallots were easy to cut. Still makes me cry though. Towards the tip of the blade, it's pretty thin and just glides through everything with ease, even through sweet potatoes. When you get a little bit to the back, to the heel, where it's get a little bit chunky, you might wedge through the harder produce. The food release isn't really good. Sometimes it felt like I had to put a little bit more pressure or effort into the chopping technique, but I didn't want to bang the edge of this brand new knife too hard on my board. I think I was a little bit too cautious with it, so that might have altered my perception of its performance a little bit. The performance of this knife is definitely ample. Just cutting a few things with it makes me really appreciate this knife altogether. But sometimes I just had the feeling the tasks at hand were not that effortless with this knife, but definitely not a problem either. Still a pretty good performer. And I pretty much succeeded in finishing every task that I needed to do in this kitchen session with no problems whatsoever. Definitely a nice series from Nigara. I'm happy that they decided to make Rainbow Damascus as well, because there are not too many blade smiths and forges in Japan that are creating these. And damn, yeah, they set the bar pretty high with this one. So the end verdict, definitely art that pushes the edge a little further. This is some edgy art. This is art with an edge.